the health world through the power of radio. It's the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Veterans issues are not something that's strange to us or, our support of those things, particularly in integrative and holistic ways out of the mess that the VA has got so many veterans into. And it is Veterans Day. Of course, we don't limit it to Veterans Day, but we have a friend of the program back on, first time in a while. Glenn Stewart, welcome back. Thanks for the service to your country and also the service to the vets, because you've been working very hard on the issue of Gulf War illness for many years now.
Good morning, and thank you for having me back on.
Well, we appreciate all of your efforts to not only raise awareness, because that's only part of it, but to really bring solutions to these guys and gals that have suffered severely under what's called Gulf War illness, what we would consider to be vaccine-induced, environmental-induced illnesses that go beyond what they consider the normal hazards of the war theater, so to speak.
The main culprit right now is pointing to the anthrax vaccine, which would explain why non-deployed have also developed Gulf War illness.
Yeah, one of the most profound interviews I ever did was with a journalist, television and media journalist, Gary Matsumoto, who wrote the book Vaccine A, and suddenly found himself unemployed and couldn't find work as a journalist because he was a Boy Scout. He did the right thing. He investigated. It led him there. He wrote a book about it, and suddenly, whoa, you can't go there.
Well, I look at vaccines, and you look at, when I grew up, we hardly had any vaccines as a child, and I was a perfectly healthy kid. These kids today going to public school, I mean, it's insane how many vaccines and the cover-up that has been involved. The CDC has been exposed, the lies on the research when it comes to the MMR vaccine and autism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it raises obviously a big question that what I've called the third rail of medical politics doesn't want raised, and that is the issue of vaccine safety and efficacy. Is it even warranted? Is it a viable option? And of course, when you go to serve in the U.S. military in any of the branches and they inject you with numerous vaccinations, I would say any or all of them are experimental, certainly in combination. And then we start adding all of these adjuvants, including the squalene of the vaccine in the anthrax variety. I just don't find that to be a normal hazard where somebody would sign up for the military realizing they could be put in harm's way, but they didn't expect that they would be put in harm's way the moment they signed up and they were injected with experimental medicaments.
Exactly. I mean, it's all experimental. It's all theory. And, the question is, do you want to trust these people that are backed by pharmaceutical companies with your health and the health of your children and your grandchildren? To me, it's just illogical to do so.
Glenn, for those that don't know you, it's been a while since we had you on. Can you review your service so people understand what you've been through?
Well, I'm a veteran of the first Gulf War, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, which, in essence has been the forgotten war, and it was a quick war. But unfortunately, due to exposure to chemical weapons, which, yes, Iraq did have them and did use them, and also the fact that we were given experimental drugs, we were forced to take experimental drugs and take experimental vaccines, which had not even cleared or been tested through the FDA. We were forced to take those. So now there's over 250,000 of us that are sick, dead, or dying, due to a lot of different health issues. And for the VA, you're talking about over 23 years of denial. Mm-hmm. You go to the VA and then basically try to push it off as a psychosomatic problem like PTSD or stress.
Right. Well, who is talking about this as a vast experiment on our troops and our veterans at this point? Because, as I said, when you sign up to serve, you think, okay, I'm protecting, defending the Constitution, the people, all of that. and yet you're assaulted not by bullets on the battlefield necessarily, but by needles from the doctors within the armed services. Did you think that when you signed up, that you would be considered guinea pigs or lab rats for the pharmaceutical industrial complex?
No, because I went with a pure heart. I know why I joined. I joined because I wanted to protect my country. And I trusted my generals. I trusted all those in power. I trusted the Secretary of Defense. I trusted them to do what is right and just and correct for the troops. And then when we come back and come back sick, and I started investigating, researching, and then come to find out, wow, these people lied to us.
Yeah.
They lied the entire time.
Well,
it feels like somebody stabbed you in the back.
Right, and I think that acknowledgement is something that I woke up many years ago, that I was lied to about modern medicine and my body and my healing. And it's across the board is the point here. Not to get political, there's been plenty of that going around, but as another explanation is the two outsiders that were Bernie Sanders and Trump. Why were they so appealing to the voters, where an establishment politician ultimately was not, is because people are wanting change. They may not know what that change is they're asking for, but there's definitely that suspicion. We've been lied to by the establishment, political elites, etc., and they've been paying lip service to the vets and the VA in cleaning it up. I pray that Donald Trump will actually succeed where others before him have failed, even if they had ever intended to clean it up. I'm not sure. But it seems like Trump may be sincere about that, but we'll keep an eye on that. So what is something that our listeners, my listeners here on the Robert Scott Bell Show, can do to support you and your efforts?
I would say the big thing would be call your senators, call your congressmen, call and send letters to the president. Call all those elected officials and say, look, enough is enough. You guys, what you're doing with these veterans is barbaric and inhumane. It is disgusting. It is totally un-American. It's insane that they defend us, and here you turn around and you basically throw them in the gutter like a piece of trash waiting for them to die.
Yeah, the concept of cannon fodder, but in a new way, the cannon fodder for, again, big pharma. Very interesting, it's devastating when I hear these stories, and of course I've been covering it for many years, and I know you've been at it as well. Now, Glenn, on this Veterans Day, you're heading up to, was it in South Dakota? Where are you heading now?
North Dakota. To Sacred Stone Camp.
So you're going up to the Sacred Stone Camp. So tell me, what is it about what's going on up there that resonates with you? I understand you're bringing a lot of donated items, products, clothing, shelter type support. What is it about what's going on there that you acknowledge and recognize as a military veteran that you see in alignment here? Well,
I'm going up there because I look at, one today, I'm on the road right now. I pulled up at a rest stop, but what better way to celebrate Veterans Day than to drive up there, which I will be arriving tomorrow on my birthday. So I don't, that's like a birthday gift to me.
Happy birthday.
I'm going up there because, I see all the cover-ups that the government has done through the years, all the lies, the corruption of big oil companies, the fracking, all, these elite power, these power elite have such a grasp within our political system that they don't care what happens to the environment. They don't care they don't look at the future. All they're looking at is greed, how much money I can make. If it ends up killing 10,000, 100,000 people, they don't care.
Yes.
As long as they keep on pulling in money, and it's time for us, the U.S. citizens, the citizens of this world, to start banding together and to put a stop to the dependency on oil and coal. Renewable energies have been proven that they are feasible. The technology is there, and it is absolutely possible to become oil independent.
Sure. Now, the issue up there in North Dakota, it's what they call, I think in England, a sticky wicket. I mean, there's so many layers of misunderstandings and lies that are going back and forth. I mean, we're going back into the history of the Native American treaties with the U.S. government. Is the U.S. government operating on behalf of multinational corporations with no allegiance to any nation or state? I mean, these are real serious questions, and I don't have a definitive answer at this moment. But you feel...
Well, the big thing, people try to argue, well, this is private land. Well, if you do a little bit of research, you will realize that land that the Native Americans are talking about, where the pipeline is going through, no, in reality, that is actually indigenous people's land. It was provided to them during the Laramie Treaty of 1851. But here's the thing about the U.S. government. You heard the term Indian giver as one that gives a gift and it takes it back, right?
Right.
Well, how about the U.S. government that signs a treaty of 1851 and then 10 years later comes back to that Indian population and says, oh, by the way, I need to steal 10,000 acres from you this time.
Right.
15 years later, they turn around and, I need another 20,000 acres from you. And they keep on taking and taking.
Glenn, it sounds like the U.S. government speaks with forked tongue, as they have with the veterans. So I see the alignment here and the compassion you have for those people as well. And like you said, Veterans Day is a thing that I don't know that we can go to the depths of it in any one segment, any one show, or any 10 shows. But Glenn, I'm so appreciative of your efforts. We have linked up in the show notes to go to your site through Google Plus, as well as a YouTube link where they can watch and follow you there, as well as Twitter accounts to keep up with the Gulf War illness and your efforts to support those troops. And hopefully we can reform this thing called the VA and correct all these wrongs.
I do hope so. The biggest thing I see, one of the biggest ways of breaking the corruption within the VA would be to dismantle the AFGE, which is the American Federal Government Employee Union.
Wow, you bring up something huge. I got to hold you over. All right, stand by. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Glenn Stewart here on Veterans Day on the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Live around the world, the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Did you know that?
Hey, Super Don, we got Glenn Stewart on with us, and he just opened up a huge can of worms.
I know, right? Yeah. What a cliffhanger right before the break there. But I'm interested to hear what this AFGE union is.
Oh, yeah. What's going on with this union that you think is standing in the way of the corrections that can be made and need to be made at the VA to serve the veterans who have served their country?
Well, the AFGE is the union where VA employees fall under. And the big problem is that they have built, over the decades, such a strong bureaucratic system within the VA. They have managed to get laws passed to the point where you cannot touch a VA employee. You cannot fire them. I mean, unless they murder somebody. You look at some of these VA executives and directors that caught in doing wrong. They were fired. They appealed, they turned around, they got fired. Most of them, they just get reassigned to no location.
Right.
When they get caught doing something wrong, all they do is they move them to a different center in the state. And it's the taxpayer that ends up paying the expense of moving them.
Right.
So to me, the biggest thing would dismantle the AFGE, hold these people accountable where, hey, bottom line, you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, they can be held accountable for their crimes.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You talk about they'd have to murder someone to get fired or worse. the reality is in that VA system, we're losing veterans every day. Now, I'm not saying it's intentional murder, but the end result is the same, that they're dying needlessly, they're suffering needlessly. We have other ways to go to support them, including the use of cannabidiol for PTSD and other methods that would be more helpful than harmful. Unfortunately, as I said, Big Pharma owns the VA as it owns much of our government. And we pray that this can change now with new administration in place that isn't owned by that group. We'll see what happens. But again, Glenn, is there any other message that you have to your fellow veterans suffering from Gulf War illness in terms of ways to get out of this mess, maybe outside of the VA, things that you found successful?
I would tell veterans suffering from Gulf War illness to please research your ailments and look for natural remedies, because the pharmaceutical approach, the ideology of pill pushing does not work. And in fact, it may have adverse issues later on, like destruction of your liver and your pancreas and so on.
Yeah.
Look at natural remedies. And if they have questions about such, they can email me, because I have put together a supplement list that actually is helping me.
Beautiful. Glenn, what's your email address? We'll let everybody know. It'll be in the show notes.
It's going to be at gulfwarillness1@gmail.com, and that's all together. gulfwarillness1@gmail.com.
And that's the number 1, right? Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, Gulf War, and that's also how to follow you on Twitter. Well, thank you for your service and your continuing service to vets all across this land, and also, the Native Americans that you're going up to support at the. Just like I said, there's so many layers, but I'm glad you brought up the treaty. We're going to be looking more into that to cover it in more in depth. But your efforts are definitely not in vain. We're getting the word out, and the vets will learn of this. Those who haven't heard yet, there are ways to go. Send an email to Glenn Stewart, gulfwarillness1@gmail.com. He'll get back to you with a list of things that are helping him. And if you ever have a question for us, you can call 866-939-BELL, 866-939-2355, or go to robertscottbell.com and leave a message or question there as well. Super Don, any Veterans Day message we want to put out there before we have to wrap it up?
Well, like I said, it's really good to hear from you again, Glenn, and we'll follow up with you to see how things are going. I just want to say you are going to be doing some live streaming from North Dakota when you get there. Is that correct?
Correct.
So they can go to your Facebook page, right, and be able to see what's going on there?
Correct.
Okay, we'll include that link in the show notes so everybody can get plugged in there.
You'll see that from Captain Morgan. So, folks, again, it isn't enough to pay lip service to the veterans. They've done an incredible job keeping us safe and free. We may have political issues with those in leadership sending them around the world, but we want to support them, and we want to bring that healing to them that Glenn Stewart is working to bring as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service, and the power to heal is still yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.